My name's Donna Quach. I work at the College Success Foundation. I'm the program here at CSF, part of our statewide initiatives team, and I help support the Washington Passport Network. And what we do at CSF is we support the implementation of the Passport to Careers program. We help provide technical assistance to campuses that are implementing this program, and we help facilitate a series of webinars in partnership with the Washington Student Achievement Council and represent WPN. Let's see. Okay, Dawn and Brenda, if you wanted to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dawn Cipriano McCafferty, the Assistant Director for the Passport to Careers program at the Washington Student Achievement Council. The Washington Student Achievement Council does education policy. We implement law around education, and then we also have, we administer the state's financial aid programs.
I'm Brenda McCafferty. I'm the McKinneyVento and Foster Care Liaison for North Thurston Public Schools in Lacey, Washington, and I identify and support the needs of our McKinneyVento homeless youth as well as our foster youth.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a couple of questions that I'll field to you in a bit, Dawn, as we get started.
Okay.
So before we get started in the formal presentation, some of the learning outcomes that we have and goals that we have for attendees today is for folks to learn about the updated eligibility criteria for students who fall into the unaccompanied homeless category, to understand the definition of unaccompanied homeless youth. I think that some folks have shared confusion on the way that we are identifying unaccompanied homeless youth and the definition around that. And then the last bit of this presentation is to understand the steps that students need to take to apply and to verify their eligibility for the Passport program. So during the presentation today, we definitely want it to be interactive. So if you have questions, please use the chat function. I'm monitoring that here on the side, and I'll field that over to Dawn and Brenda throughout the presentation. And we don't anticipate to take the full hour. There's going to be a lot of time at the end for question and answer as well. And if we don't get to your questions today and aren't able to answer them, we do have a follow-up part 2 of this webinar next week as well. Okay. Dawn, if you want to.
Yeah. Can you bump our little screen, or is this?
Is that better?
I think it's me. Okay, so in a couple of years ago, Passport was expanded to serve a larger population of students. In the past, we had served students who had spent at least 1 year in foster care after the age of 16, and then had been in care at age 17 and a half or emancipated from care. They had to have been a dependent of Washington State only, and then of course been a Washington State resident. So beginning in July of 2018, the program was expanded to serve any foster youth who had been in state, tribal, federal foster care systems in Washington State, or a part of the ICPC program, which is the Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children. So that was July 2018, and if they had been in foster care at any point after age 15, then they were also eligible for the program. Starting July 2019, the program was further expanded to serve unaccompanied homeless youth, along with the foster youth, and for those who had experienced foster care after the age of 14. Next year, beginning July 1st, 2020, you will serve all of those aforementioned populations, as well as any student who's been in foster care after the age of 13, which aligns Passport with the federal definition of an independent student for financial aid purposes. So in order to be eligible for the Passport program, a student must have been in foster care or experienced unaccompanied homelessness. They do need to complete the FAFSA or WASFA because they need to be eligible for state financial aid programs. They need to attend an approved college in the state of Washington, or be participating in a registered apprenticeship program in Washington State. They can't be pursuing a degree in theology because of the state's law about the separation of church and state. They need to be a Washington resident. They need to also enroll prior to age 22. And the scholarship does expire at age 27. So basically the student has 15 quarters of eligibility 15 quarters of eligibility in the program. And they can, they can attend, 2 quarters and then stop out and then come back, but they do have 15 quarters and they have up until age 27. And I did want to point out that I have two pieces here that are starred, because you'll see that the program RCW and WAC, they contradict each other. So the WAC says 22 and 27, whereas RCW says 21 and 26. What we plan on doing in 2020 is taking a look at the WAC and updating it. And so we fully expect that that'll be aligned with the RCW in 2020.
And then Don, we have a question here from Laura. She asked to please confirm unaccompanied homeless youth in Washington residency with being a high school grad or GED from Washington or other states.
The college will determine the student's residency. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the student had to graduate from a Washington high school. Graduating from a Washington high school is a college-bound requirement. It's not necessarily a requirement of the passport program. So I don't know if that's answering the question.
She said thank you. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So I just want to share some information regarding unaccompanied homeless youth and homelessness in general. So the first thing I usually ask is, what does homelessness look like? For most people, this is the image that most people have when you hear that word homeless. In fact, many of our families that are experiencing housing instability and qualify under McKinneyVento have this same image of what homelessness looks like. An individual standing on a street corner, asking for food, money, those types of things. This is clearly a homeless situation. However, most, if you want to go to that next slide, the reality is these are the faces of homelessness. I work in North Thurston Public Schools. We are a district of more than 15,000 students. Last year, we had 873 students who were identified as or qualified under McKinneyVento, so families and youth who were experiencing housing instability. We had, of those 873, 160 of them were unaccompanied youth in our high schools. Let me go ahead and see. So McKinneyVento, it's a federal law. It was established to ensure that all children and youth who are experiencing homelessness have access to an education so that they're able to immediately enroll in school regardless of whether or not they have proper documentation. Many of these families come to us, they don't have a birth certificate, immunization records, proof of residency, previous school records, but we want them to be able to enroll in school immediately. And under this law, they are able to do that. They immediately enroll, actively participate, and to be successful. That also includes before and after school activities, so sports or clubhouse programs, tutoring programs. This law allows them to be able to participate in those as well. So McKinneyVento defines homelessness as an individual who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So that means families that are in a shared or doubled up housing situation, meaning they've lost housing due to an eviction or a similar reason, or it's due to an economic hardship. Most of the families in my district, that is their particular situation. It also includes families living in shelters or transitional housing, hotels, motels, cars, campgrounds, and RVs. Substandard housing, which means they may have no power in their home, or during those cold winter months, they have no heat. Their water's been shut off. They may have mold or rodent infestations. as well as it may be that there are too many people living in one dwelling. We've had situations where a family has a 2-bedroom home, they invite another family that lost housing to move in, and then maybe another family moves in with them. So pretty soon there are, 14, 15 people living under one roof in a 2-bedroom home, and kids are then sleeping on floors, in couches, maybe in garages or in the back in tents. So that all qualifies them under that substandard housing. And then it includes our most vulnerable kids, our unaccompanied homeless youth. So an unaccompanied youth is an individual who is not in the physical custody of a parent or a legal guardian. There are youth in our district and in the schools that are, let's say, for instance, a foreign exchange student. So they're not in that physical custody of a parent or a legal guardian. However, they are in a host family. It was a planned placement. They're being well supported by the host family and their parents. When it comes to unaccompanied homeless youth, it is a situation where the student, for whatever reason, is not in that custody with their parents, and it's most often due to dysfunction in the family. They may have, there may be some neglect and abuse in the family. The student may have run away, and as far as McKinneyVento goes, there is not any qualifying reason for me to have to determine whether or not that dysfunction or that abuse or neglect is eligible for them. My job is to make sure that those students are able to come to school every single day, and I remove barriers so that those youth can, again, participate and be successful in school. So homelessness as defined by HUD is a little different. There are 4 categories for the criteria for defining homelessness. Category 1 is literally homeless. They have a very similar definition as what McKinneyVento is. So an individual lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, but meaning that it's a student or person living in a place that is not meant for human habitation. So as well as emergency shelters, transitional housing, or they may be exiting an institution where they had been temporarily residing for up to 90 days. Category 2 is they're at imminent risk of homelessness. So these are people that will be losing housing. It could include hotels and motels as well as being doubled up, but it has to be within that 14-day period. It does require documentation for that particular category. Category 3 is homeless under the federal statutes. So families with children or unaccompanied youth, and in the HUD definition, unaccompanied is under age 25, who are unstably housed or have not owned or leased a place of their own in the last 60 or more days. It also, these are both category 2 and category 3, they also lack resources to obtain stable housing. And then, of course, category 4 is fleeing or attempting to flee a domestic violence situation. They have no residence or a lack of resources to support them finding permanent housing. So for our school staff, my job is to ensure that I am training school staff as well as our community on different indicators or what to, strategies to look for when identifying our homeless youth. So some of those indicators, and this doesn't necessarily mean that if a student is, exhibiting some of these indicators that they're homeless, but they are things that we need to watch for. And those include poor hygiene. So we have students that are coming to school and suddenly they're dirty, they're wearing the same clothes day after day. They're constantly hungry, they're fatigued, their behaviors may change. We may have a student who is outgoing, participating in sports, and suddenly they have lost all interest in that, or it may be some students that normally don't make any waves at all and they're suddenly lashing out in class. Also, students may make comments, especially our high school kids, our unaccompanied youth, letting somebody know that, yeah, I moved again, or I can't come to school because I don't have transportation. So that brings us to that multiple absences or coming in late, not being prepared for school. Those are all indicators again, and we ask that when we do work with our staff and our community, you know, we ask them to send us referrals. Let us know that these students are in these situations. We do want to avoid that term homeless. There's a stigma to it. So when we're talking with our youth, our students and families, we use terms like, are you living in a temporary situation? Do you have a stable place to stay? Are you experiencing housing instability? Is your family in transition right now? So we just want to be very careful with how we word that, so not to cause any additional stigma for that student. And then just letting people know that there are resources and the district and the community have that we can support these youth.
So I kind of want to dovetail off of what Brenda was saying, and you know, this is a new opportunity for us to work with a brand new student population, and you know, we learn in the process. And one of those, I had one of those learning experiences a couple of weeks ago. I was at a school fair, a school resource fair, and I had taken all of my, you know, passport materials and all the flyers and everything, and I was promoting the program. You know, this is Passport, it serves unaccompanied homeless youth, and it serves foster youth. And I realized that it was actually pushing people away. And so what I found was I had to change my language and say, if you have any friends or if you know anybody that might be experiencing something like this, then, you know, take this information and share it with them. And I realized that I was actually sharing it with some of the people that were going to be benefiting from the program in itself, but I had to shift it and not say for you, but for your friends. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but I just wanted to share that my learning experience in that as well. So moving on to this slide, I just wanted, how I had mentioned before, Passport began serving students on July 1st for the unaccompanied homeless youth. And so our students must have experienced unaccompanied homelessness during the 18-19 academic year. And like Brenda had said, unaccompanied, this is a very clear definition, is that they can't be in the custody of a parent or guardian. So they could be homeless, but with a parent or guardian and not benefit from the program, but they do need to be unaccompanied. And then for Passport program, we do define homelessness through the McKinneyVento homeless definition. Oh, anyone want to guess how many students? Okay, so typically in Passport, we serve probably between 350 and 400 students each year. As you can expect, our student population increased quite a bit this year when we did open the program up to serving unaccompanied homeless youth. So I can tell you right now that we have 547 students with awards in our payment system for their scholarships. Does anyone want to take a guess as to how many of those 547 were unaccompanied homeless youth? You can go ahead and put it in the chat function if you want.
Someone said 300, 200, or 250.
Yeah.
350. And then we have a couple of questions too, Dawn, that I'll
Okay, cool.
go over to you. 300.
So as of this morning, we had 248 students listed as unaccompanied homeless youth. So the program is expanding quite a bit, and we're serving a lot more students. So go ahead. What are the questions that you have?
First one is, can you speak to UHY who are also undocumented and their eligibility for the program?
Yes, so they could be eligible for the program. They just need to complete the WASFA, and then make sure that they're working with the financial aid office at the college that they're planning on attending. But yes, they could be considered eligible for the program.
Okay. And then the next question is, what are the rules with sharing information from high school district McKinneyVento list of students with the community colleges? Can community colleges request a list from their school district?
We
Go
don't
ahead.
we don't share that list of who qualifies for services. We do, and I believe that's going to be later in the slides, is an eligibility for a student who qualifies under the McKinneyVento as an unaccompanied homeless youth. We do have a letter that we send to the college to for verification purposes.
You know, I know that that information is protected. But if you're in a school district or at a community college and you'd like to work that out, maybe it's something that you could work out individually with the local school district in your area as like a data sharing agreement or something. I don't know what could be done, but you know, that's something that you can explore as well.
Okay.
Oh, I see a question from Laura. Laura's saying if the student is self-identified, then yes. So if the student comes into your office and says that they're, you know, unaccompanied homeless, then yeah, of course you can, you know, you can work with them. Or
Right. I believe that we'd need to do a release of information though, from that student.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one more question. So this is Liz at Green River. Currently, I have students being sent to me from McKinneyVento. 2 have been in Running Start, and she wants to know what language should be provided for these students in regards to their eligibility.
So if they're in Running Start programs, they're not going to be eligible for Passport yet. They have to be regular enrolled college students in order to receive Passport. But they, oh wait, yeah.
So are they currently Running Start students?
They have been in Running Start. Liz, are they currently in Running Start? Yes.
Yeah, then they wouldn't be eligible for Passport yet.
Okay.
So how does a student apply for Passport? Basically what happens is the college financial aid office will make the determination on their eligibility for Passport 99% of the time. So the financial aid office can choose to choose how they want to have that status documented. And like Brenda had said earlier, we will show you an example of a McKinneyVento liaison letter. Or, you know, the student could provide you with a letter from a housing director or program, you know, a drop-in center or something where they could have official documentation of their status. If this financial aid office is not able to determine the student's eligibility based on the information that they have, you can refer the student to WASAC, and we will do that determination for you. But I want to make clear that that determination is only for Passport. It's not for independent status for financial aid purposes. So if that student wants to file their FAFSA as an independent student, that's something that they'll have to work out with the financial aid office.
And then we have a question from Kathy at Highline
Okay.
in regards to Running Start. Can Running Start students use incentive grant funds? And these are eligible Running Start students with McKinneyVento status.
So because they're not eligible for Passport at that time, they would not be eligible to receive incentive grant funds.
I think that's all the questions we have so far.
Okay. So as I had said, this screenshot it's actually the student housing questionnaire that WASAC developed with a community organization that supports unaccompanied homeless youth and foster youth, and OSPI to help provide documentation of a student's unaccompanied homeless status. So WASAC had developed this to create for in-house purposes, but I was hearing from institutions that they wanted to have some kind of official application or something for students to fill out so that the institutions could also be helped in determining the student's unaccompanied homeless status. So I've shared this with institutions. If you are interested in using this and making it a common part of your practice, when working with students, I'm happy to get that emailed out to you. Just go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll get it sent to you. Oh, and it looks like Donna also posted it to the Washington Passport Network website, so you can access it there as well. Well, I also wanted to tell you just a little tip when working with the passport student population. A lot of the students that we work with are transient. You know, they're moving from place to place, moving from home to home, and it is really difficult to keep track of important documents like the McKinneyVento letter and their, you know, birth certificate or whatever it is. And I always like to recommend that students save these documents, these important documents, in an electronic format. So if they have it in a cloud-based format or whatever, like a Google Doc or something of that kind of form, that they can access it from no matter where they are, you know, it just helps them in gathering their information when they're asked for it by the financial aid office.
This is a sample, or this is our letter for North Thurston Public Schools. This is the verification of independent status for our McKinneyVento kids, unaccompanied youth. So when they are preparing to fill out their FAFSA form, we fill out this form for them. We give it to the student, and we do keep this on file in our McKinneyVento files for students, so they can come back. We have students that come back to us a couple years down the road. Some of them don't go to college right away, so they may need this a couple of years down the road. So we do keep this on file. We make sure that they have a copy. And you know, this is right off of the OSPI website as far as what it says.
Do you know how long you keep documentation of this for your students?
7 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Anne. If a student is unaccompanied but has their own children, would that qualify them as independent student, but not trigger the passport qualification?
Yes.
And so then would it be prudent to have them specifically mention this to the financial aid office?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing. When you're talking to your students, you can tell them to share this information with the financial aid office so that they can help, you know, they can help them with this. Yeah, so absolutely mention it to the financial aid office, because we do want to make sure that they're considered an independent for financial aid purposes if they have children, and then can benefit from the program as well.
Okay, this brings us to the conclusion of our formal presentation. Just in closing, a couple of reminders. We have another webinar scheduled for next Wednesday at 2 to 3. So it's part 2 of this topic, unaccompanied homeless youth passport students. And we are inviting a couple of campus partners to come share practices that they have been and the process they've been using to identify and verify eligible UHY students for the passport scholarship. And then John will be back and join us to present as well. And then a resource that we recently learned about is something that was created from the Schoolhouse Connection. And it's a couple of pages. Don printed out hard copies of it. It's basically tips for supporting and helping youth who have experienced homelessness and succeeding in post-secondary. So there's a few good tips there. It's practices that have been shared or currently happening across the country. So not specific to Washington State, but I think that there are some things that we could take from practices that other states are doing, supporting UHY students. And then the last thing is we will be sending the survey for folks to complete who have participated in the webinar. And we also will be uploading this webinar onto our YouTube channel. So in the next day or two, you'll receive an email from the Passport account asking you to complete a quick survey. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes. And we love to hear feedback on how we can improve the webinars and make it most value for you. And then we do have a few questions, so I'm going to get back to that.
Okay.
Okay. Kimberly asked, will a copy, yes, actually the copy of a presentation. So we'll upload the presentation onto our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to hear the comments from the presenters and see the presentation. And then Kimberly, if you'd like to get an email, just a version of the PowerPoint, I'm happy to send that to you individually too. Yeah, so same thing, Antonio, you can download this PowerPoint. I'll send it out to attendees as a follow-up. And then Stacy, let's see, if this is a question. If a school does not require students to provide documents to verify their responses to the 3 FAFSA UHY questions, do we need to obtain documentation in order to award passport funds?
Nope, that's an institution decision.
Okay. Another question that we received is, can you speak a bit more about the Interstate Compact for Homeless Students, and how does this assist with residency?
Okay, so the Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children, what I see most frequently are students that are actually dependents of the state of California, that are placed in Washington State, going to Washington State schools. And in the past, those students, they would have been Washington residents and everything, graduating from Washington High School, but they wouldn't have been eligible for passport because they were dependents of another state. So if you come into that situation where a student is a dependent of another state placed in Washington, then we definitely want to, we definitely want to talk about that. We want to make sure that they're eligible for the program, and that's for foster youth. For students that are ICPC placed, dependents of Washington placed out of the state, they would have to become Washington residents in order to be able to use passport again. But it'll be the same situation. They'd still be eligible for the program, but they'd have to gain their Washington residency.
That's all the questions that I'm seeing
Okay.
on my end. And then just a follow up with the PowerPoint, I will, we'll actually upload that onto our Washington Passport Network website, so it makes it easier for folks to download rather than sending the PowerPoint individually to people. And I'll send out a link to our WPN website as a follow-up.
Okay, can they clarify for the
yes.
age? Okay, can you read that, Donna? I can't see the whole thing.
This question's from Kathy at Highline.
Okay.
Can you clarify the age requirements, 21 or 22 to be enrolled, and then 26 or 27 for the end of scholarship when they age out?
Okay, so students, there's a contradiction in the RCW and the WAC. So right now we're saying that the students have up until age 22 to enroll and up until age 27 to use their scholarship. So yeah, but that will be corrected in our WAC update this year, or in 2020.
Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us again. If you have any questions that you think—
Oh, I see one.
Oh, let's see.
No, it's not the 23rd birthday. It's up until their 22nd birthday.
Oh, one more. Do these age requirements apply to unaccompanied homeless youth? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I got another question that came in. Hi, Brian. Good to see you.
Hi, Brian.
Okay, if a student is verified as UHY from a different institution, is it okay to award them passport at our institution? Yes,
as long as that that policy is documented, then yeah, it's a totally institutional policy.
Okay. Oh, actually, I don't know if Rose heard that. It came in differently. I'll follow up with Rose.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Again, this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Oh, one more. actually a couple more questions, which is good. We have lots of time for that. Okay, can you please clarify if a student is documented as unaccompanied homeless youth under age 21, they have until 22 to 27?
They have to enroll prior to their 22nd birthday, and they can use it until age 27.
And then
and it's their 27th birthday. That's the cutoff, hard cutoff right there.
Mm-hmm. And potential changes, right, because of the WAC.
Yes, and that could potentially change to 26.
And then Laureate Clark, follow up on signing a lease. Are they still UHY?
No. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Once their name is on a lease, then they no longer qualify.
We'll give it a little bit to see if anyone else has some last minute questions.
The other thing I might add is McKinneyVento is from the day that we identify during a current school year to the last day, it's per school year. So we have to re-identify every student at the start of every new school year.
Do they need to remain UHY while in the program?
Yes, they do need to if they're an unaccompanied homeless youth, yes, they would need to remain unaccompanied homeless youth to benefit from the program. And to make that determination, the financial aid office does not need to redetermine that every year unless they find out that something has changed in the student status.
Okay. Question from Anna at Lake Washington Tech. Can you clarify the last answer? Oh wait, the day they sign a lease, they no longer qualify. Oh, so she is asking about UHY students who sign a lease, like apartment lease.
Yeah, because that's stable housing. Dorms are not stable housing. So they would continue to be eligible if they're living in a dorm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Regina at Edmonds, if the student gets into, oh yeah, on-campus dorms using their, using their passport funding, are they no longer eligible to receive funding? No, so yes, dorms is okay. If an unaccompanied homeless youth is living in the dorms, that is not considered, and that's their only form of like housing. That isn't considered stable. And then, oh, Anna just wanted to clarify the language that she's been seeing is that if they were homeless at any point in the previous academic year, she said it doesn't sound like the same statement to her.
I'm sorry. I think I need to follow up on that one.
Okay, Anna, we will follow up with you on that question about housing.
Yeah, because I want to take a look at what you're referring to.
She said, thank you. And then, let's see, a couple more. Is homestay considered dorms?
I'm not sure what homestay is.
Regina, if you can clarify, and we can follow up with you too, Regina, on this. Another question from TCC, I think this is Emily. If financial aid is made aware of a change in situation that a student is no longer, and they are no longer determined to be UHY, but things change the next year, would they be eligible to regain eligibility?
Yeah. Yes, for the unaccompanied homeless youth, they could come in and out of the program.
Okay, another question. What if a student is eligible for passport, but then become ineligible and later re-enter? Would they be considered for passport if they are still under 26? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the same thing. They can go in and out.
Okay, Regina, we will follow up with you. It sounds like this is more of a campus specific situation.
The homestay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Regina, I haven't heard of that before.
Is it some type of transitional housing?
Yeah.
maybe?
Okay. Again, we are available to answer questions after this webinar. Join us next week if you're free, next Wednesday from 2 to 3 for part 2 of this. And this will be uploaded and also made available on our Washington Passport Network website.
Oh,
Brian
Brian.
has a question. Let's see. Oh, I missed sorry, there's a few questions in the queue. Okay, so if campuses use incentive grant dollars to get a UHY student in non-student housing, is that student no longer eligible, or no longer passport eligible?
If they're on a lease, yes.
Sorry, Brian, did you hear that?
So if you use incentive grant funds, if the student is passport eligible and you use incentive grant funds to help that student secure stable housing, then yes, potentially it could, if they're on a lease, then yeah, it could potentially make them ineligible for the program for future funding.
He said, yes, so incentive grants can make people ineligible before they start classes.
It could happen, and these are a lot of the issues that we need to work out when we update the program WACs. But the way it's standing right now, yeah. Oh.
Okay,
Brian, let's talk later.
I have a few more. Jamie at Spokane Falls. Just to be clear, financial aid does not need to redetermine eligibility every year.
No, they don't. Not unless you know of a change in the student status.
Okay, another question from Kim. Under McKinneyVento, not all lease agreements are considered permanent housing. Families sometimes have leases in their names, but have other requirements to fulfill to keep the lease, and having housing case management. Families in these situations often continue McKinneyVento status.
Sounds like those are transitional type housing programs.
So yeah, if it's transitional type housing, then that they would still qualify.
Yeah.
We are not providing certification for this class. Thank you for joining the webinar. And let's see, last question I see right now is, does passport definition of homelessness differ from McKinneyVento?
We basically follow McKinneyVento.
Okay. Any other questions that we can answer? Thanks, Brian. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you all for joining us again, and feel free to reach out to our team here at CSF. You can email passport@collegesuccessfoundation.org, and then Don and Brenda as well if you have specific questions for them.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.